What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin, and today I was going to show you how I care for my Golden Gate Ficus. Now, the scientific name is Ficus microcarpa, and it's the Golden Gate Ficus. It's got the common names of the tiger bark ficus and the tiger stripe ficus. And that really just becomes in because of its great contrast with the dark kind of grayish stem and the little white stripes that kind of appear on it. This tree, this bonsai, it checks all the boxes. It is a great species of tree to have, and that's just because it's really easy to care for. It's got insane amount of beauty and contrast and the gnarly kind of knotted stems that a lot of people look for in a bonsai. They kind of give it character. Contrast between the foliage and the stem is amazing, and you see all the stripes and the characteristics of your stem. It has aerial roots. And it is fast growing, so the stem kind of plumps up and thickens and gets pretty big relatively quick. So if you don't have this bonsai or you're looking for another one to kind of go for, this one is a great one to have. And they market it as a indoor bonsai. And I mean, first and foremost, you got to remember it is a tree, and trees belong outside where they can get an insane amount of humidity that they need and the right amount of light they need also. And I mean, most windows really only get about 4 hours of direct sunlight. Some may get a little bit more, but trees, for the most part, they really do need to be outside, because they get unobstructed views for the light. And unless you have like a bay window, you're probably not going to get the right amount of sunlight that you need. And don't forget that glass always intensifies light. So if it's getting a lot of light, it's probably going to be a little bit magnified and probably end up hurting your plant and burning your leaves. And the humidity inside our homes is not nowhere where it needs to be for our trees or just our bonsais. So when the weather turns nice and it gets really warm out, and the nighttime temperatures are not dipping below 55 degrees, I would go ahead and set this guy outside. Now, with the ficuses, there's between about 800 and 850 different species of ficus. Some are like ivy, some are like shrubs, some are epiphytes, some are hemiepiphytes. I mean, there's just a whole vast difference of different kind of ficuses out there, and they're on every continent in the tropical areas. Well, just about every continent. I don't think there's any in Antarctica. So wherever the tropics are and the islands and stuff like that, that's really where you're going to find a majority of your ficuses. So this one comes from around China down to around the Caroline Islands and Australia. So it's basically at home in the tropics. It's going to like a good amount of light, not a whole bunch of direct light, a great amount of humidity and warmth is really all this plant really needs. And that's why they market it as an indoor plant to us, because it's used to the warmth and some of the humidity, so it can stay indoors to keep that kind of warmth and get some humidity. But like I said, when it becomes nice outside, you really want to set this guy outside and get him some direct sunlight, not a lot. I have mine kind of on a northeast exposure. He gets ample amount of morning sunlight, and then around noon and 1 o'clock, he's kind of sheltered back from the heat of the sun during the hottest part of the day. Now, that's not to say that he can't be out in direct sunlight, but you need to acclimate him slowly. You cannot set him when it's been indoors, or it's been in your house, or it's been in a store for a long time, and then just immediately set him out in the sun. His leaves are going to burn, and you're going to lose a lot of them if the plant doesn't just all around just die. So, like I said, you always want to acclimate him slowly. And these guys are good drinkers. I mean, not somebody you want to take out with you as your drinking buddy, but they do like a great amount of water. Just to kind of couple with that a lot of sunlight, So they need a really porous draining soil, something that drains relatively quickly, but has some nutrients to it and some added heft to kind of hold the tree upright. So of course I always use mine. Mix in some general all-purpose fertilizer with a kind of all-purpose substrate or soil, and then I add in a lot of sand and then some added rocks in there too for some added heft and to drain quickly as well. Now I know with the soil, all ficuses like it a little bit acidic to neutral. So around 6.0 to 6.5 on up to 7 is okay, but I wouldn't really kind of go over 7 because I do like it slightly acidic. I know with the pests, oh god, they struggle with everything from aphids to mealybugs to spider mites to scale. So you got to be really careful of that and kind of keep it a little secluded to make sure he's not really going to have an avid infestation. And if you do have a lot of plants around, you definitely want to kind of go over the plant into some natural light and kind of look up in between the leaves and make sure you don't see any kind of white filaments, something that may indicate that you actually do have spider mites. And check out your stems too. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of white kind of spots and stripes on here, and that just kind of gives the plant its character and its name for the common name of the tiger stripe or tiger bark. But you do want to look for scale too, because these guys can have that kind of a problem. Now, if you do have scale, a lot of the times you can just take your thumbnail and kind of scratch it off, and maybe after you do that, put a little bit of rubbing alcohol onto a Q-tip and kind of go over it, or you can take a fairly dull blade, not something that's actually going to cut into the bark, but that will actually remove the scale, because of what happens with scale is the under part of the insect is pressed up against the tree and the outer part is encased in a hard protective shell. So if you go ahead and spray it with some kind of insecticide, nothing's going to happen. So you actually have to remove them by force because they will kind of stick something down into the bark and start draining the nutrients out of the stems, and they won't move, so they'll be stuck there for a long time, and you'll have to remove them yourself. But if you're not careful, scale can spread rather quickly and end up causing a lot of harm to your tree, if not just kill it. Alright, so as I was saying, they do get these beautiful aerial roots on the side here, and as the tree gets older you'll start to see more of those, but I've had a lot of questions about how you can encourage aerial roots. I found with me a lot of humidity kind of helps with that, and if the temperature's up a little bit too, kind of in between like 70, 75, 80, around in there with a nice humidity, kind of encourages aerial roots to start to grow. But you also want to make sure you feed your ficus too. They're not avid feeders. Some say that you can actually feed them every 2 weeks. I find every 2 to 3 weeks is okay with mine. They like a liquid kind of all-purpose fertilizer, but you can use the kind of slow release ones, the pellets. Here right now you can see the green ones, but if you're using a water-soluble fertilizer, you're okay, because that'll put the fertilizers down around the roots where they need to be. But if you're using the slow-release ones, kind of like I had, the little pellets, you want to make sure you do water your tree after you apply that fertilizer. This will help flush out any kind of salts that may have already been built up in your pot, and it will help to bring the fertilizer down around the root zone where it really needs to be. Now, I know with this guy, there is a lot of avid pruning with him. Like I said, they are fast growers, so their trunks will kind of thicken up a little bit quicker than most do, but I know with the leaves, they can grow rather quickly. So with a lot of the fresher kind of green stems, before they get too insanely long, you may need to kind of pinch them off and prune them back some, because they will kind of start growing. And while you have the tree kind of like the same size as mine is right now, you kind of want to get a general outline of what you want your tree to look like, what kind of style you want it to take, and kind of start to plan that rather early on so that you can get a picture in your head as to what you want it to look like and start kind of pruning back areas that don't fit that image. Always make sure you sanitize your pruning shears before you start to kind of pinch areas back and cut leaves off, because we know that if you cut from one tree and you go to another, or from one plant to another, you can invite rot and pest and any kind of other disease into your new one if you're not careful of that. And like I said, these guys are really susceptible to all kinds of disease and rot and pest, so it's better to err on the side of caution. Repotting these guys need to be done about every 2 years, maybe every 3. But like I said, they are fast growers, so I do mine about every other year to every 2 years, because you'll notice that the branches or the stems and the roots will kind of start growing at an insanely fast pace, and some will start to come out the bottom of the pot or the top, where they can actually kind of escape. So you don't want it to be too tight in there, but about every year or so I will start kind of checking the soil to make sure I don't see anything kind of poking up that may indicate that it's time to go ahead and repot this guy. Alright, and just to recap, with light we want a lot of bright and direct sunlight, maybe anywhere from about 6 to 10 hours a day. We want really bright shade, unless it's been acclimated, because these leaves will kind of burn. Now when you get a new one and you bring it into your home or you set it outside, you may see a slight leaf droppage. Somewhere around 20% is kind of normal, and it's just because of shipping. But if you start to lose more than that, you want to examine your watering schedule, and you want to examine your fertilizer and around your location. You don't want it to be any kind of drafty window or door, or you don't want it to be next to any kind of air vent, because that will encourage a lot of leaf droppage too. With the water, I've heard some horror stories. A lot of people say that you don't really want to get a lot of the stems wet and the leaves, because that can invite some disease in. But for as long as I've had him, I've always kind of watered the top down. But for the most part, I do kind of try to encourage a little bit more watering around the substrate, because you really do want to kind of go ahead and get the whole top of the pot. You don't really want to miss any kind of roots. Roots that have not had water in a long time begin to die off, and if a bunch of that happens, you will end up losing your tree also. Like I said, with the pH, we like it around 6 to 6.5 on up to 7, so slightly acidic. Temperatures, you do not want it to get down below 55 degrees at night. Once that starts to occur and it gets cold at night, you want to bring it back in. Fertilizer, I think around an 8-8-8 NPK ratio, or a 20-20-20 diluted by about half is right on point to where it needs to be. And I said I like the slow release ones, but the water soluble ones work great as well too. And also, these trees will go dormant, and you do not want to fertilize them after about October or November, depending on your location. Humidity is very important with these guys too, so I always make sure that I have it outside, or if it's inside for any reason at all, I have my humidifier going. A tree this size, spraying it, and with a humidity pebble tray, the pebble tray may help some, but they do need a lot more humidity, so I keep mine outside, and at night I'll come by and kind of water the soil just to make sure he is retaining some moisture. Pests, we know they do have a problem with aphids, mealybugs, spider mites, and scale, and I'm sure there's a little bit more out there too. So whenever you have your tree and you're watering it, make sure you have it in natural light, or use your cell phone and kind of go in between the leaves and make sure you don't see a lot of yellowing leaves, or any kind of bite marks on the leaves, or any kind of filaments that may indicate spider mites. A lot of times, if you do have pests on your plant, the only thing you really need to do is grab your water hose and just kind of spray it down, and the water will knock it all off. If you do that and then you go over it again and you see a lot of stuff on there, apply rubbing alcohol to a washcloth or a Q-tip and kind of go in from there, and the alcohol will kill and remove a bunch of that too. Well, that's really all I wanted to say. Like I said, it does need to be repotted, probably a little bit sooner than most bonsais do, but I will do a video, hopefully in the next year or so, on how to repot this guy. So if you are looking for a new bonsai tree to get, the Golden Gate Ficus bonsai is spectacular. Like I said, they get really big, so I've seen them in about like a 12 or 18 inch pot, so they can add a lot of massive roots. Plus they get the aerial roots, and their bark is just amazing with the contrast of the white kind of stripes, the gray stems, and the beautiful kind of tear-shaped oval leaves. It's amazing. They're a great kind of bonsai to have, and I really do encourage you guys to go out and kind of get one. While you're at it, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever had any kind of success or failures with this bonsai, and let me know what are some of your favorites. I've got a whole plethora of them outside, and I want to do more than those, so let me know if you guys even care about the bonsais, or if you just want to hear about the regular plants that kind of inhabit our homes as well. While you're at it, make sure you hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube. Real quick, I wanted to thank my Patreon subscribers. Pam donated this month. If you're interested in supporting my channel through Patreon, please check the link in the description box below.